So it is happening. And what I mean by that is, if you guys saw the news last week,
A high-stakes visit between two powerful strategic partners is being watched around the world. For the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine, China's Xi Jinping is in Moscow meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
there was two things that came out of it that I want to talk about today. And obviously I'm out walking around. I had a sponsorship in the last video, if you guys saw, and because of that I was able to buy this little gimbal. And so I'm out trying it out today, and I'm gonna buy a microphone for my phone. So just out trying it today, see how it is. I'm actually walking around here. This is such a high lake. But I'm gonna talk about the two things that came from last week's meeting that kind of caught my attention. And I noticed that most of the mainstream media wasn't really reporting on this, and they actually kind of snubbed it and tried to keep it out of the news because it's a pretty big deal in my mind. And this is going back to the video that I was talking about previously about de-dollarization. So the first thing that we saw was an announcement by Russia. President Putin made an announcement that they were going to start trading in the renminbi, in Chinese currency. And that's a pretty big deal because that's like the first step towards de-dollarization.
Я уже говорил, уже 2/3 товарооборота между нашими странами осуществляются в рублях и юанях. Мы за использование китайских юаней в расчетах между Российской Федерацией и странами Азии, Африки, Латинской Америки.
And they are basically saying that they are going to start using the yuan, the renminbi, in third-party transactions with Latin America, with Asia, and with Africa. So if you are paying attention to what countries are in those areas, then you would say, okay, well, Latin America would be Brazil, right? And Africa would be South Africa. And Asia is obviously India and China. So that's the BRICS nations, which we have previously talked about how this is a new bloc that is being built, and chances are this new bloc is going to be introducing a currency, most likely. Either they will use the Chinese digital yuan, the digital renminbi, or they will create something new. And so that's kind of the big announcement, which I only saw two reports, like two news agencies. CNN, there was one, and Fox News. And both of them were just kind of quick little, 2 or 3 minute reports saying this was an announcement and that maybe something new would come of this. But they didn't really go into detail explaining why this is important. And so obviously, like we said before, de-dollarization is kind of the goal. And I was thinking previously that maybe it would take 20 to 30 years, because I was thinking around 2050, because these things take a long time usually to really get going. But with this new announcement, maybe 10 to 15, they might be trying to accelerate this, because when you look at what's been going on recently in the United States, basically, yeah, I'm out here walking, so tourists and people see me and, oh, what's this guy doing with his phone, and what's he talking about? Basically, with the banking failures in the United States, it's becoming more and more obvious that the system is fragile, and more countries are starting to realize and wake up to the fact that the dollar may not be the safest asset in the future. So we even had an announcement from, I think it was the president of Kenya recently, was saying, if you own dollars, good luck.
For the people who work numbers, I am giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you surely might go into losses. You better do what you must do, because this market is going to be different in a couple of weeks.
So there's an appetite to de-dollarize, and I think that's what China and Russia specifically are saying, hey, we need to get off of this before it's too late and the whole thing comes crashing down. And so I was thinking 20 to 30 years, but they might be accelerating it to 10 or 15 because it's got to happen in their mind. And the sooner it happens, the better. So I think all the pieces are coming together. You have a lot of countries that are trying to join BRICS right now, like we said in the last video. Iran and Saudi Arabia, Venezuela. I think it was, trying to think of the other country in South America that just broke ties with Taiwan. Honduras, I believe, and they were also talking about possibly some kind of economic partnership with mainland China. So I think more and more countries are saying, hey, the future might be, just maybe, it might be multipolar, and it might be a better bet to side with China, because at the end of the day, China produces everything. And if you want things in your country, right? If you want products, if your number one trading partner is saying, hey, use our currency, you're probably going to start using that currency because it makes the most sense. Especially if the United States keeps weaponizing the dollar, then you say, I don't want to buy treasury, like treasury reserve, like the bonds or whatever, because it's not the safest asset. The other thing is when the Federal Reserve starts printing more money, which they're doing right now to save these banks, then all of a sudden people are going to say, hey, every time you print money, you devalue our assets, right? If you have bonds, or if you have some kind of treasury bonds or something like this, and then you change the interest rate, that devalues their asset. That's what happened with the Silicon Valley Bank, is the interest rates changed, and then their bonds became less valuable, and then they had to write those bonds off because there was a run on the bank. And so a lot of people are saying, hey, we don't want that kind of thing to happen to our country or to our assets. So just maybe, we'll start looking to de-dollarize. So that was the first thing. The second thing that came from it was one other aspect, which was kind of at the end of the meeting when President Xi was leaving. There was this little audio clip that got everybody all excited, which basically President Xi said, rickshaws are going by, everybody's out. It's quite busy right now. Yeah, the weather's getting really nice now. It's like 15-20 degrees now, so everybody's out and about. But right at the end, when they were leaving, there was this clip that came out, and President Xi was saying that their partnership was going to be something that hasn't been seen in 100 years. And of course that got everybody excited.
Как раз сейчас перемены, которые не было в течение 100 лет. Как вместе двигаем эти перемены. Берегите, пожалуйста, дорогой друг.
The few people that did report on it were like, oh, what are they talking about? Oh, is it going to be some kind of military agreement or some kind of military pact? Oh, what is this? What is this? And I think it's just going back to de-dollarization, because the US currency basically came to dominance after World War I, which is about 100 years ago. And, it just continued to progress after essentially the British Empire started to fall apart after World War I. There was, issues with their currency. We had the Great Depression, and then we went into World War II. And then out of World War II, the United States came out basically the victor, and everybody switched to their currency because, again, it goes back to stability. People wanted a safe place to put their assets, so they shipped all their gold to the United States, and the United States said, we will protect it. We will take care of your gold, and then we'll back the US dollar to gold. So if you ever want gold, just give us US dollars back. And then they went off that gold standard. And after that, basically, money has been devaluing ever since. The US dollar has been devaluing ever since. And the way that you can look at it, a lot of people are like, why is everything so expensive? Well, it's a little loud here. A lot of people are like, why is everything so expensive? Why is housing so expensive? And it's like, well, housing actually isn't more expensive than the 1950s. What's happened is your unit of trade has decreased in value since the 1950s. And therefore, you have to give up more of those units in order to get said property. And that's why it feels like the prices have gone up, but they actually haven't. Really interesting thing that you can do is you can go and look at the prices of houses in the 1950s and see how much they are. I'll actually put it on the screen. And then find the price of gold at that time. And I believe it was $40 per ounce of gold at that time. And so if you say, well, how many ounces of gold did I need to buy a house in 1950? And how many ounces of gold do I need to buy a house today? And you'll realize that it's pretty much the same amount of gold. So therefore, housing prices haven't increased. Your dollar value has decreased. And I think when countries start realizing that, and they say, well, if our value is decreasing every day, essentially, we don't want to hold this asset anymore. We would rather have gold because it holds its value, or we'd rather have land because that also holds its value. So it's interesting to see. I'm walking down this little side street now. There's lots of shops here for people buying food and a lot of people out. Yeah, so those two things were kind of the big points that I got, which were kind of like more interesting than just kind of the regular economic cooperation stuff that they talked about and how they were going to continue to cooperate with each other. Obviously, there wasn't really much, at least to the public, about the war on Ukraine. I'm sure it was discussed, and obviously there was comments about it, but it didn't seem to come out with anything specific like China willing to give them, supply them with arms, which was a lot of worry from, I guess, NATO, that China would come in and say, we're going to give weapons or sell weapons, lethal weapons to Russia. Crazy things happening in the world. Just a little quick take. I'm also just, like I said, testing out this new gimbal, and if this audio is okay and this video is okay, I might do more of these now that it's getting warmer and now that I can just kind of walk around and talk. What are your thoughts? Do you think these 2 points were kind of the big ones? Did I miss something? Obviously, what do you guys think about the kind of blackout from Western media? None of them really covering this. And yeah, leave a comment and we'll continue. If you want to see another video, or if you want to see the last video about de-dollarization, I'll put it up here in the corner and you can click on it. And I will see you guys over there.